thrilled that you are hanging out with us. And do you remember?
Always.
Yeah, I know. It's
Everything.
a rhetorical question. I'll just say I'm sorry again. You remember years and years ago, we met in the hotel lobby with a gentleman who was very interested in working with us, and he was a long form copywriter. Yes. And we said, all right, love the long form, but you got to get to that 30-second, maybe even 10-second soundbite for a 30-second commercial here in radio. And he says, you guys in radio all do the same thing. You think it's all about branding. Branding is dead.
I do remember him saying that. Yeah, and it was all about long copy sales.
Yeah.
And of course, in advertising, you don't have the luxury of, spending 45 minutes explaining what it is that you do. And I was surprised to hear that somebody thought that branding is dead.
Dead. So the only people who need to brand are the big companies anymore.
I still feel, and that was years ago, your brand is your promise. Your brand is your promise. It's what you are known for. It's what people think about you, how they feel about doing business with you. That will never die. The impact that your brand and how people feel and think about you will never go away.
Yeah. Lisa Orrell says this. She says, when someone has contact with your brand in person or virtually, one of two things happens. Your brand is reinforced. That is to say, your promise is made good.
Yep. You stand for it. That aligns with everything I thought and felt and knew about you.
Or it is weakened.
Like, ooh, that's not what I was expecting here.
Whoops.
Right. And when it's not what we're expecting, it derails. So when we're trying to create that know, like, and trust, remember, people do business with people they know, like, and trust. If
Agreed.
We're trying to create that and we come in with some disconnects to our branding, to our culture, that it doesn't quite line up with what people were thinking, then very unlikely are they going to continue down that path of A, wanting to do business with us in the first place, B, definitely not going to refer new business to us. And if they had been doing business with us, we're probably going to be lacking in future loyalty. So you have to know what your brand promise is. And there's some different words you can put to this, like your brand value, your different, brand differentiators, what differentiates you from the competition.
We boil it right down. You got to know who you are. You've got to know who you are. If you don't know who you are, and you know who you are, if you don't know who you are, you're the ones who, when somebody says, all right, you got 30 seconds, tell me about your business. And it changes and you stutter and you stumble and you don't know because you don't know who you are. You don't know what your promise is. Back in the day, we started this concept, working through this. And by the way, we all, small business owners, all of us have to go through this. And it is good for us to go through it on a continual, upgraded basis.
Well, right? Because we get shiny object syndrome just like everybody else.
Right.
And so we start focusing, maybe we add new features and
it gets muddled.
It does. It starts to. And so every year coming back to bringing your team back to the core of this is who we are. This is what we stand for. This is what our customers think or feel when they think of us. This is the promise we're making to our customers. And coming back to Dr. Henry Cloud, he wrote the book, something about endings, necessary endings.
Yeah.
And he talks about in companies that, you go to the core of who you are, what you stand for, what your brand promise is, and what is fluff to that? What is taking away from that core message and not really serving us? And it's confusing. It's creating, difficulty and complexity in the system. Weed that stuff out.
And we speak from a position of experience. We started off with, we make you visible. Right. Mm-hmm. That was our brand promise. That's what we promised to do. But in the process, as we built this great big empire with all kinds of bells and whistles, and you can have this class and you can have that thing and you can do this networking event and you can do, before you know it, now nobody's like, well, I guess it's just a networking group. Right. Which is not what we were, not what we intended to be. So we boiled it all back down.
Boil it back down.
And we can do it in 4 words or less.
Boil it out so that only you on the radio comes out.
You on the radio, our brand promise.
Our brand promise, you on the radio. So think about your customer and, why are they loyal to you? Why would they refer others to you? And not only why, what do they say when they are referring others to you? And does it match up with what you consistently deliver on. So with what they think and what you consistently deliver on, do those two match up? You've got to get clarity. You've got to get clarity in your team. You've got to get clarity in your messaging. You've got to get clarity in everything that you're putting out and how you're speaking to the customer. But then making sure that it lines up with what it is that they think. And maybe what they're thinking is right, which would be great.
Absolutely.
And we strengthen on that. But what if what they're thinking is completely different? You now have to,
now that you're at a crossroads.
It's your verbiage. It's you deciding. And so do you like what they have to say better?
Right. Is it working?
Because sometimes that just might be the case.
Yeah.
I remember there's a fan company and they were selling these really big fans.
Yeah.
And they had a name for their company.
Uh-huh.
But they got to be known for these really big fans.
Can I say the name?
I'm not going to say the name.
Can I say it?
Well, they have not paid for this endorsement.
No, they have not. Big ass fans.
Right. But they were known for these fans and they ended up changing their brand and everything because that's what the customers thought of.
It stuck.
And, and it made sense.
People walk in and say, that's a big ass fan.
And it matched. So they changed really the core of their branding to match with what the consumers were thinking of their brand. And it was a hit. So if you can be a hit with your customers and
listen to them,
match up with what they're thinking. Yeah, always. So, here's how, here's some statistics just to be aware of. Potential buyers judge companies 90% by how they appear.
And that's your brand. That's your brand image, your brand promise. It's you and your company, not just your logo.
Yeah. So, and their perception of you. And because how you appear in one place is, how you do one thing is how you do everything. And so if this is sloppy, if this is messy, if this is confusing, if there's a disconnect here, there's probably sloppy, messy disconnects other places inside your company.
The other statistic that you need to know is that designed brands, those are the ones that people put thought into and come out with on the other side with a professional brand, rate considerably higher on virtually all financial measurements.
So make sure it all matches who you are, where you are, and what you look like. All the same.
You want to build your brand on the radio? We can help. Check it out. BuildYourBrandOnTheRadio.com. We'll be back right after these messages.